Okay, let's see, next on the agenda, reports by Mr. McMullen and Mrs. Mosley on the Spring Academy, and I will let Mrs. Mosley go first. This was a convention at the, Chula Vista Resort, right?
Yes.
Kathy? And they had a couple different tracks, and Mrs. Mosley went to one of the tracks, I went to the other one.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The purpose of the Spring Academy was to provide a foundation in the roles and responsibilities of being an effective school board member, hosted by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards on May 5th, 2012. I attended track 1, which was tailored for new board members. In the first session, it was legal authority of duties of the Wisconsin school boards. The presentation provided an overview of key areas of Wisconsin law, including open meetings, public records, conflicts of interest, liability and risk management, and a board's power and duties. This session was very similar to a session that I had attended at CISA in April as a new school board member. The second session I attended was Investing in Wisconsin Public Schools. By far, this was the most interesting interactive event at the session for me. Developed by the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, and the Wisconsin School of Public Relations Association, this session was to help address the challenges of educating stakeholders on public school finance. The learning objectives examined the basic revenue and expense elements of education's financial scorecard. It was an interactive, hands-on activity that took members through a process of self-discovery to lay a foundation for understanding Wisconsin school finance. It was an excellent introduction for school finance. The key themes included were who are our stakeholders, what are the various sources of public school funding, what are the various expenses of public schools, what are the ramifications of not having sufficient revenues, how are stakeholders affected by effectiveness of public education, what are the common outcomes of education and how are they impacted by school funding mechanisms, and how would you balance, or how would you approach balancing a budget? It is a very interactive game, which I actually said to the board at the last meeting that it would be something that I think that the school board should take out to the community and educate, because for me, being a new school board member, it was very educational, and I would gladly facilitate something like that. The third session I attended was the key work of school boards, where we discussed a framework of 8 interrelated action areas to focus and guide school boards. The key work components were vision, standards, assessment, accountability, alignment, climate, collaboration, and community engagement. The purpose of this exercise was to help school board members discover how to engage the community and improve student achievement through effective governance. In the fourth session that I attended was school board policy development. This oriented new board members to the important work of policy development, addressed best practices, and highlighted WASB resources that are available to assist school board members and administrators with their policy-related responsibilities. This session addressed what policies do and why are effective policies important, and it briefly discussed how school district policies are structured/organized. There was a couple key aha takeaway moments that I had, and I thought this was kind of comical, but one of the speakers said, compare sausage and law. If you like sausage and law, never watch either being made. So, and then it was, one of the key takeaways was don't make policy decisions in a vacuum. and avoid drive-by policy decisions whenever possible. But I'd like to thank the school board for allowing me to attend this session. It really educated me on what I'm to do as a school board member, so thank you.
I was prepared to just sit there, Kathy, but I guess we set the bar higher. So. I took a different track, and the two main sessions that I'll highlight, the first one focused on the school district budgeting cycle. And it got into a lot of nitty-gritty on budgeting and the finance, all the finance law. I'm not going to go into that. Sort of the themes that I pulled out that were important that I think we're going to need to be thinking very closely about, and I know that Mr. Gore thinks about every night, every day. The budgeting and financing has become extremely important now. We have scarce resources, and unfortunately in public education it's a competition. We're competing for a limited amount of resources, and unless you know how the financing system works, you're not going to know how to fight for your individual school districts. There's going to be winners and losers with the pot of money. Some school districts win, some lose on the way it's formulated, and we better be thinking about how the financing's set up and where we stand in that so that we can effectively advocate for resources for the Toma School District. So that was sort of the overall importance, the theme of importance of understanding the whole cycle. A few things they brought out. One, prepare a budget calendar. We hear from Mr. Gorder all the time about all these important dates. There's the third Friday counts, there's the July 8 estimates, and we sort of get those as we go through the year, but I don't know if we have a formal calendar set up someplace for that, do we? I think it would be very helpful for all of us to be prepared for these things as they're coming down, to have a very simple overview of the year. I looked in the annual report. I don't know. I didn't see it in there. I don't know. We didn't put it in the
Whatever
handbook.
We can always do a better job at. There's obviously we can always do better.
Okay. Something to think about.
Pretty sure that we've looked at
I'm sure.
budget calendar.
Okay. So anyway, they encourage boards to have a budget calendar, and I guess you could, for each year, sort of go back and make it a little more specific. The third thing they brought out was set goals for the budget. We get money from the state, we levy, we have a tradition of setting so much for different categories. One thing they encouraged was, at the beginning of the budgeting process, decide, what are your goals for that budget year, and then work from that goal backwards through the budget. Now, right now it's difficult enough to just get a balanced budget, and so I don't want to make it more complicated. But I know when I was with facilities committee, sometimes I would wonder, well, why don't we, if we need money on this item, maybe we go to this. There's money over in this section, but when we budget money at the beginning, it's important to stick to. We have goals for each particular section of the budget, and so maybe it's worth thinking about at the beginning of the year of discussing how we want to allocate money based on bigger goals. Was one of the things they brought out. The last thing was to have a communication plan for every initiative. So, we come up with plans and programs, and it's probably important to think about how we're going to communicate those things to the public if we're going to spend money on those. The other main session was a little odd. It was called Evolution of a Challenge to School Board Governance. It was supposed to be a case study on how school boards will deal with challenges. In this case, they used the open enrollment issue. And I don't know that they really did a very good job with using it as a case study, but did emphasize the fact that if you followed the open enrollment legislation through this summer, it was very interesting how it went from, at the beginning, people could apply for open enrollment throughout the year for any reason, didn't need the school district's permission, and slowly school boards got involved, the Association of School Boards got involved, and little by little they started changing that original legislation to something that seemed much more realistic and practical for school districts. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that now with the changes in legislation, where we have to be prepared to more aggressively address some of those initial attempts at changing things. And this open enrollment was just the example they used in that respect. So those were the two main sessions I went to, and these are always very helpful. They're of course very educational. They also are frightening sometimes. They make you realize all the things that you hadn't thought about before. And so I just encourage everyone to take opportunities to go to these whenever they can. So thanks.